When the rover Ares Pathfinder sent back the first high-resolution images of the Cydonia outcrops, no one expected to see what looked like bones, not fossils, but articulated skeletal remains, half buried in red dust. At first, they were dismissed as tricks of light and erosion. But after the second manned mission touched down near the site, the doubts vanished. The remains were real. Humanoid. Distinct. Ancient. And then the scans started showing something even more chilling. Trace isotopes in the bone-like material matched Earth's biome. Identical calcium phosphate structure. DNA remnants, degraded, but undeniably human. But the Mars team didn't have long to celebrate or panic. Because late that night, under the pale glint of Phobos overhead, something moved in the valley. At first, it was just a flicker, an indistinct blur at the edge of the motion sensors. Private Tran dismissed it as wind kicking up dust. But there was no wind that night. No atmosphere thick enough to carry it, and certainly nothing strong enough to trigger their seismic alarms. Then came the sound. The Mars base wasn't supposed to have sound outside the habitat modules. But over the external mics, used mainly for equipment diagnostics, came a low, rhythmic clattering. Like bone on stone. Soft. Measured. The comms officer, Elena Ruiz, replayed the clip again and again. "I think it's footsteps," she said. Commander Alvarez didn't respond immediately. He stood frozen, eyes fixed on the skeletal remains just outside the module window, partially uncovered from that day's dig. The bones hadn't shifted. Not visibly. But the shadow behind the ridge had. "Seal the perimeter," Alvarez ordered. "Now!" Inside the control module, monitors flickered. One by one, the feeds from the external rover cams blinked to static. Then black. No malfunction codes. No timeouts. Just, gone. Ruiz leaned toward the feed of Cam 3, the one pointed at the excavation site. "Oh my God," she whispered. The bones were no longer there. A long, shallow trail stretched into the Martian dust, like something had dragged itself away from its own grave. The trail wound westward, unmistakably deliberate. Not a tumble of bones scattered by impact, but a path. A dragging, crawling migration. Alvarez, Ruiz, and Tran followed it in silence, suited up and sealed tight in EVA gear. The Martian sun cast long, blood-orange shadows as they reached a ridge overlooking a shallow basin. And that's where they saw it. A shattered monument jutted out from the red rock like a half-buried god. Towering and eroded, its head had crumbled long ago, but what remained was unmistakable. The thick, curling beard of an Akkadian king, the falcon wings of Horus spread wide along the shoulders, and in its stone hand, still clenched even in ruin, a tablet inscribed in a language none of their onboard systems could translate. But the form? Ruiz took a slow breath. "That looks like Gilgamesh." Tran scoffed, but not convincingly. "On Mars?" Alvarez stepped closer to the tablet. The surface shimmered faintly under their helmet lights. "Not erosion, tech." It responded to the light. "It's not just stone," he muttered. "There's circuitry in the material." As he reached out to touch it, his glove buzzed, static charge. And then, the ground beneath them hummed. A low, resonant frequency, felt more than heard. The statue's base cracked open, revealing a descending passage carved with more hybrid iconography, Egyptian ankhs woven with Mesopotamian cuneiform, depictions of star maps spiraling into the void. And at the bottom of the passage, the remains of a chamber. Inside, more bones, but these weren't human. Elongated skulls. Armored vertebrae. Something older. One wall still glowed faintly with preserved holography. It flickered to life as they stepped in. A planet. Earth. Then Mars. Then an ark, travel. Exile. Burials. And a final image, a humanoid figure holding twin staffs, one Egyptian, one Sumerian, standing before a circle of stars. Behind him, thousands knelt in silence. Ruiz stared. "They were here before us." "No," Alvarez said quietly. "They were us. Or, what we were made from." And then came the final feed from orbit, sent from an autonomous probe scanning the southern hemisphere of Mars. Dozens more of these statues. All in a perfect circle. A ring around the equator. A planetary seal. And beneath them, according to the LiDAR scans, massive vaults. Still locked. Still pulsing. Still waiting. Inside the chamber, surrounded by ancient symbols and an atmosphere untouched for millennia, the three stood in stunned silence, each processing the impossible in their own way. Tran broke it first. Her voice crackled through the comms. "I've seen this before," she said, eyes tracing a carving that mirrored a familiar image, Isis with wings outstretched, but subtly altered. The wings ended not in feathers, but in stars. "I used to stare at a relief just like this at the British Museum," she continued. "It's Egyptian, but it isn't. The geometry is wrong. Or maybe it's too perfect. I thought it was just stylized art. Now." Alvarez nodded slowly, studying another wall. It showed a battle. A king-like figure, just like the one in the Epic of Gilgamesh, wrestling a horned being beneath a sky full of unfamiliar constellations. "I wrote my thesis on that," he muttered. "Gilgamesh searching for immortality. He crossed the waters of death, looking for the secret of life. It was all metaphor, I thought. Until now." He looked around the chamber, eyes wide. What if his journey was real? Not allegory, memory. Ancient memory. Ruiz knelt near the glowing panel and placed his hand just above its surface. It pulsed once, reacting to him, recognizing him. He shivered. "This reminds me of what Randall Carlson used to talk about, the Younger Dryas, the global flood, a civilization that was reset. Buried. Lost. Göbekli Tepe, the Sphinx erosion, everything people dismissed as coincidence." He looked up at them. "Maybe we didn't just forget. Maybe we were made to forget." The chamber went quiet again. Alvarez looked between them. "What are the odds," he asked, "that the three of us, all with niche obsessions tied to this, ended up here, now?" Tran shook her head. "There were hundreds of applicants for this mission. Thousands, even. What if we weren't just picked? What if we were summoned?" Ruiz said softly. They turned toward the inner door, newly revealed as the chamber activated, symbols lighting up in sequence. It hadn't opened when they entered. But now, with all three inside, it welcomed them. The doorway slid open with a hiss. Inside, something waited. Not just data. Not just relics. But a signal. A consciousness, maybe. Something timeless. Watching. Waiting. For them. Location. Undisclosed facility, Earth. Somewhere deep underground, or perhaps far above sea level, beneath ancient stone or within a hypersecure complex cloaked from public record. 12 figures stood in a circle around a young man seated at the center of a raised stone platform. His eyes were closed, face calm, breath shallow. Electrodes fed minimal signals to a faintly humming monitor, but the real attention was on his voice, steady and strange. "They've passed through the first gate," he said, his tone hollow. "There's a corridor. Symbols, changing as they walk. They match their thoughts. The structure adapts. It's not just stone. It's responsive. It's aware." A tall man in gray robes stepped forward. "What of the vault? Do you see what's inside?"